You know, a lot of celebrities talk about loving their fans, right? They say things like, I love you all, or thanks to the fans, especially when they're on stage or accepting awards. And it's nice. It's polite. It's expected, but then there's Johnny Depp. When Johnny says he loves his fans, he means it in a completely different way. He once said something that really hits you in the chest if you think about it for a moment. He said, they couldn't love me nearly as much as I love them. Just listen to that. Really feel it. That's not a celebrity line. That's not a marketing phrase. That's a man speaking from a place of scars and gratitude, because when Johnny says those words, you can hear the weight behind them. The heartbreak he survived, the years when he felt misunderstood, the times when the world tried to cancel him, erase him, silence him. Yet in those moments, millions of people stood with him, believed in him, defended him when it would have been easier to stay quiet. And Johnny never forgot that. Not for a second. Because to him, fans aren't just fans. They're people. Real people with real feelings, real loyalty, real love. And the way he looks at them. It's not like he's looking down from a pedestal. It's like he's looking across the room as equals, as family. As if he's saying, you stood by me when I didn't know if the world ever would again. And I will never forget that. That's rare. That's special. That's something Hollywood doesn't create. That's something life creates. Pain creates. Healing creates. Now think about this. In a world where most big stars rush past crowds protected by bodyguards, sunglasses on, heads down, giving a quick wave before disappearing into a black SUV, Johnny does the opposite. He walks slowly. He stops. He signs autographs for every person he can. He hugs people. He listens to their stories. He laughs with them. He looks them in the eye. He shows up not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because he remembers what it feels like to be seen and what it feels like to not be seen at all. And here's the thing. Johnny never chased fame. Fame chased him. But what he did chase was connection. That's why, even after the hardest moments in his life, he still showed up for fans quietly, without press attention, without reporters, without cameras following him. There are stories, so many stories, of him visiting hospitals in full Captain Jack Sparrow gear, making sick kids smile. And he didn't blast it on social media. He didn't hire photographers. It wasn't a publicity tour. He went privately, quietly. He would walk in, stay for hours, make jokes, do the Jack Sparrow voice, hold hands, give comfort, leave behind joy, and then walk out like nothing happened. And if someone asked him, he would say, children should believe in magic, not PR. How many celebrities do that? How many remember that not everyone gets to feel magic every day? Johnny does. Because deep down, despite everything that's happened in his life, he is still that humble, sensitive, artistic soul who never wanted the Hollywood machine to change him. And it didn't. The world tried. The media tried. His critics tried. But Johnny stayed Johnny. And if you think about the tough times he faced, when everything in his life became a headline, when certain media outlets decided they had already written the ending to his story, who was there? Fans, real fans. People who didn't disappear when things got tough. People who didn't trade loyalty for gossip. People who didn't say, let's wait and see. They stood, loud, brave, firm. They said, we will not abandon you. And Johnny felt that. He always talks about it. He always thanks fans for giving him strength when he had none to give back. And that's why he says, they couldn't love me nearly as much as I love them, because he sees loyalty as love. And his love is not shallow. It's deep. It's born from gratitude. You know what's interesting? In Hollywood, most comebacks are loud. Big premieres, magazine covers, dramatic speeches. But Johnny's comeback wasn't loud. It wasn't about making noise. It was about breathing again. It was about healing. It was about walking gently back into the world with dignity and quiet confidence. And fans didn't demand a performance from him. They didn't say, entertain us. They said, take your time. We are here. That's a relationship. That's human. That's real. There's something powerful about quiet love, isn't there? Loud love is everywhere. People scream it, post it, hashtag it. But quiet love, the kind where someone stands with you when nobody is watching, where they protect you when you feel broken. That is the love that stays. That is the love Johnny feels from fans. That is the love he gives back, and when he came back into the public eye again, When he appeared at Cannes, looking calm, mature, elegant, almost reborn, he didn't come back angry. He didn't come back bitter. He didn't come back yelling at the world. He came back grateful, peaceful, humble. He came back as someone who knows pain, understands silence, values loyalty, and cherishes the people who never lost faith in him. And if you watched that moment, if you saw his eyes when he spoke about gratitude, you could feel that the love he has for his supporters isn't surface level. It's personal. It's emotional. It's real, and I think that's why people connect to him so deeply. He isn't polished. He isn't scripted. He isn't calculating every word to impress. He feels, he reflects, he cares, and when he looks at fans, he sees parts of himself, outsiders, dreamers, sensitive souls, fighters, people who don't give up even when life gets dark. He sees courage in them, and they see courage in him. Imagine being a global superstar and still saying, "They love me? No, I love them more." That's humility. That's heart. That's Johnny Depp, and if you've supported him, even silently, even privately, he feels that. You may never meet him. You may never stand in a crowd around him, holding a poster or a photograph or crying tears of joy, but you are part of his story. Your belief helped him breathe again. Your voice helped him rise again. Your loyalty reminded him he wasn't alone. He once said he doesn't think of fans as fans. He thinks of them as his survival team, the people who became his anchor when everything around him was shaking. And how beautiful is that? To have a bond with millions of strangers stronger than many people ever feel in their personal lives? And here's something most people don't know, not fully. During the hardest, darkest period of his life, when headlines were cruel and loud, when social media felt like a battlefield, and when the world seemed determined to pick sides before hearing facts, Johnny didn't crumble. He didn't hide in anger or bitterness. He didn't sit alone in a mansion plotting revenge or rehearsing some public comeback speech. That's not who he is. That never was him. Instead, he moved. He breathed. He stayed human. He traveled, not as a superstar looking for applause, but as a man trying to find pieces of himself again. Paris streets, quiet cafes in small towns, dusty backstage rooms in old music venues, places where no film camera was rolling, places where he could simply exist without someone trying to label him. He played music, not for charts, not for awards, not for attention, but because music is where his truth lives. Every time he held a guitar, every time he stepped into a dim hallway before a show, every time he let a note linger longer than usual, he was healing something inside him. Music became the place where he could breathe without judgment, where the world fell quiet and only sincerity remained, where his heart beat louder than the headlines. He surrounded himself with artists, real ones, soulful, rugged, truth-driven musicians who didn't care about Hollywood whispers or courtroom gossip. People who valued emotion over fame. People who understood what it means to be wounded by the world but still choose to create anyway. People who understood silence, pain, and the weird peace you feel when you make art while your life feels like a hurricane. And he met fans, not on red carpets, not at premieres, not surrounded by security lights and microphones, but in airports, outside concert halls, in quiet European streets, on steps of old theaters. Fans who didn't scream for attention, but simply stood there, trembling sometimes, emotional sometimes, just wanting to look him in the eyes and say something real, something true, something gentle, and often all they said was, "We believe you," sometimes softly, sometimes shaking, sometimes with tears, sometimes in whispers that carried more strength than 1,000 headlines. And do you know what that does to a person? Not to a movie star, but to a human being who feels like the world is collapsing around them? It gives them breath again. It gives them a heartbeat again. It puts strength back in their spine, warmth back in their chest. It reminds them that hope doesn't always come in crowds. Sometimes it comes in one quiet voice, standing in the cold holding a small sign, saying, "You're not alone." Even one stranger whispering, "Stay strong," can pull a person back from the edge of emotional exhaustion. Imagine hearing that not once but hundreds, thousands of times, in different countries, in different languages, from people of different ages who owe you nothing, yet give you everything, their faith. That changes a soul. It feeds a soul. Because truth, real truth, isn't loud. It doesn't need to yell. It doesn't rely on headlines or trending tags. Real truth waits. It breathes. It survives the fire. It rises when everyone expects it to fall. And Johnny learned that not from Hollywood, but from the people who stood in front of him with shaking hands and steady hearts. There were days when he walked through crowds quietly, keeping his head low, not because he was ashamed, but because he was tired. Tired in the way only a wounded person understands. And yet someone would reach out a letter. Someone would hold up a drawing. Someone would gently place a gift in his hand without asking for anything in return. Someone would say, "We're here." And just like that, the world didn't feel so heavy. He didn't need loud crowds to validate him. He didn't need public applause to feel seen. All he needed, all anyone really needs, was a reminder that he still mattered. That his story wasn't over. That his goodness didn't disappear just because someone tried to paint him differently. He found comfort in ordinary moments, sharing a quiet smoke with a fan outside a venue, laughing with musicians backstage, sitting in a car listening to music while the rain hit the windows, taking photographs with shy fans who expected him to walk past, but instead found him stopping. Smiling, talking, caring, that's the kind of man he is. Even while the world tried to tear him down, he chose softness over bitterness. He chose art over anger. He chose connection instead of isolation, and here's the beauty of it. The world expected him to break loudly, but he healed quietly. They expected him to shout, but he breathed. They expected him to disappear, but he walked streets like a human, not a headline. They tried to bury him, but the seeds they buried grew into something stronger, a deeper bond with the people, who always saw him for who he truly is. That is why he loves his fans the way he does, not as followers, not as cheerleaders, but as the people who gave him air when the world tried to suffocate. Him as the hearts who kept him standing when life knocked him down, as proof that truth survives, not with noise, but with loyalty. That's why he says what he says. That's why those words carry weight. That's why his love isn't performative. It's soulful. Because in his darkest chapters, his fans didn't just support him. They saved him. That's why he always says thank you. That's why his heart softens when he sees crowds cheering for him. That's why he looks at people with warmth instead of ego. That's why he walks slowly through crowds, not rushing past like fame gives him wings, but walking like he wants to remember every face that stood by him. He never forgot the support he received, and he will never forget it. So when he says, "They couldn't love me nearly as much as I love them," he really means, "Thank you for saving me." He means, "Your loyalty lives inside me." He means, "You didn't let them erase me." He means, "I love you not because you're fans, but because you're humans who gave me strength when I had none. And if you ever supported him, you are part of that love. You helped him stand again." That's not something small. That's not something ordinary. That's human power. And that's why he gives that love back 10 times over. Maybe you fell in love with him watching Pirates as a kid. Maybe you admired his artistry in films like Edward Scissorhands or Finding Neverland. Maybe you smiled at his quirky humor or his gentle interviews. Maybe you saw him as a soft-spoken soul in a loud world. And maybe when life got hard for him, you didn't walk away. And that means something. So ask yourself, when was that moment you felt connected to him? Was it a character he played that felt like you? Was it his vulnerability on screen? Was it the way he handled pain with dignity? Was it his gratitude? Was it his quietness in a noisy industry? Was it simply the feeling that this man has a heart bigger than any spotlight? Whatever it was, that connection was real, and he felt it. He still feels it, and he always will. So to the fans who stood with him, he loves you. More than you think, more than words can express. More than fame could ever matter. Because fame fades, headlines fade, careers rise and fall. But loyalty? Loyalty lives forever, and the beautiful part is, this story isn't over. He's not done creating. He's not done performing. He's not done surprising the world. And he's not done loving the people who helped him get here. If you ever doubted your support mattered, don't. It did. It does, and it always will. So tell me, what moment made you believe in him? What scene, what interview, what moment made you feel like, yeah, this man is different? Share it, because every story matters. Every memory adds to this shared journey. And trust me, he would love to hear it too, and if you felt even a little of the emotion in this story, tap like, not for me, for him, for the journey, for the people who love quietly, fiercely, and truly, for the fans who didn't give up. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and stay with us. Because this is not just a channel. This is a place for people who feel deeply, love quietly, and believe in honesty over noise. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for standing for something real. And remember, sometimes the most powerful love isn't shouted from stages. It's whispered in loyalty, kindness, and quiet belief. And that is the love Johnny Depp carries for you always.